And a hearty good evening to everyone. This is James W. Falcon. This is day two, and day two's focus on self-love focus, rather. On day two of our self-love focus, 16 days of self-love. This is an audio-only podcast, by the way. I'm doing some stuff here in the background, and I want to make sure that I am focused enough to record, but I don't want to have you guys have your attention divided by being concerned with what I'm doing in the background here. Nonetheless, I did not want to miss nor delay an opportunity to record and present you some information to keep the self-love focus train on its track and moving forward. So I hope everybody's had a wonderful and an enjoyable as well as a productive day. For day two, I sent you the cards very early this morning, and you're probably saying to yourself, James, you're just regurgitating the same thing. I'm doing that, folks, on purpose, because especially in these early days of our self-love focus, I want to make sure that I do my level best to really drive home the points. So there is a lot of overlap, a lot of repetition. We're going to be going over things a few more times, especially the beginning of the self-love definition as provided by the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Um, you have that definition. It's on the Why Not Celebrate Your Wins timeline. I won't have time to go into all of it here, but I will touch base on the points that I highlighted on today's card. And that's the fact that self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Well, James, you talked about that last week. We did. We did talk about a little bit of that. But again, I'm overlapping. I'm doing some repetition to make sure I sear this in your mind, heart, soul, and spirit. So we're doing a work here, folks, that goes well beyond, at least if you allow it to, it'll go well beyond your hearing, well beyond your eardrums. I want this to sink in, and I hope that you want it to sink in into the innermost parts of who you are. Speaking of innermost parts, I want to highlight tonight, based on today's card, the points that I want you to extract and walk away from. It says self-love is a state of being that comes from two things: an appreciation for oneself and actions that grow when you stoke your physical, your psychological, and your spiritual growth. Let me back up and start from appreciation. Self love is a state of appreciation, it is a state, a condition, a mindset, if you will. So, my question to you, my Why Not Celebrate Your Wins group member, is how much, how thoroughly, and how often do you appreciate you? On the timeline today, you'll see a few articles, as I promised I would do in last night's post. I'm going to do one podcast, and then throughout the day, I'm going to do wraparound support by providing you other links or links rather, and other video segments that I might or other people might do to really support and drive home the points and the information on the affirmation cards. Remember, in this affirmation process, do yourself a favor. Every day, whatever's on the cards, say those things out loud to yourself so that you hear, and it helps to reinforce deep within the things we want to drive home. So, self-love is a state of appreciation. Self-love is a state of appreciation. One more time. Self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself. It's a condition, a mindset, a way of living. It is a lane, if you will, that you pull your car into. It is a way of travel. It is a vehicle you choose. Make sense? That's what this thing called having an appreciation for yourself. Okay, the state of being is what I was just previously defining. State of being, we mean that, like when a person is joyful, that is a state of being. When a person is sad and sorrowful, that is a state of being. It is an experience that a person is having. Your appreciation of yourself ought to be an experience that other people can clearly see if they walk up to you, if they interact with you. Man, James is having a moment today. James is really big on celebrating some things. And if you know me, I try to really truly live like this, especially since the stroke in 2018. I make it a point. I go over the top to make sure that I am exuding, make sure that I am dripping with enthusiasm and this thing that we'll talk about much later called relational energy. I want to be so endowed with enthusiasm and encouragement that when you walk up to me, when you interact with me, when you shake my hand, when you hear me speak, you get supercharged because I make it a point to make many deposits into my account throughout the course of the day. It is a state of being. You understand what I'm saying? And when you have a state of being, it is a condition. It is a condition that you cultivate, that you stoke, that you maintain, that you seek to enjoy as well as to carry. So when you have a state of being where you appreciate yourself, that's going to come across very positive. It comes across very professionally. It comes across very casually. It comes across in every setting. People see that it's going to look like confidence. It's going to look like high self-esteem. It's going to look like you have a great, solid self-image and a great understanding of your self-worth. So I want to invite you and encourage you and charge you, my listening and viewing friend, to make sure that you find for yourself regularly a state of appreciation where you are appreciating you. How do you do that, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, my listening friend. Here's one thing that I have my clients to do, and I want you to do this as an exercise. I want you to hang on to this as an exercise that you do for yourself. Anytime you feel like you need to appreciate yourself, or if you feel like you are down in the dumps, I want you to take a piece of paper and a pencil or pen. I want you to write down 10 things about yourself, 10 positive traits about yourself, and answer the question, what am I? And I'll talk about this a little bit later on a separate podcast. What are you? Not who, but what. Write down the things that make up who you are. I'm a lover of visual art. I'm a lover of writing. I enjoy house music. Write things like that down. Do 10 of those. Keep going if you want. Do more than 10. These are the things that you can do that are deposits that you make into your self-love account balance. But these are things that you do to cultivate and to find, to pursue and maintain a state of appreciation for oneself, for yourself. So just take some time every once in a while and do an inventory. You can make it public or private. You can invite people to join you, or you can do it individually and solo. However you choose to do it. Don't forget, you have this why not celebrate your wins group and community if you want to flesh this out. Matter of fact, let me invite everybody to do this. If you hear this, I want you to do this as an exercise so that we can start moving in the direction of cultivating, maintaining, and seeking for ourselves a state of appreciation. I want you to do the exercise called What Am I? Take a piece of paper and a pencil or pen and write down 10 things or more about who you are, what you are as a what are the components that make up you? What are your likes? What are your passionate dislikes? You may be a person that can't stand injustice. So you are a person who is very much for equity, for inclusion, etc. So, even if those things are opposites, for example, I always tell my clients, you might be a person that you may have all your life been called stubborn. Well, depending on the time and the circumstance, being stubborn may be a very, very good trait. If you are stubborn about standing up for your own rights and the rights of women, newborn babies, whatever the case may be, and you're stubborn about that, that means you'll find a position, you'll make a stand, and you will not move. That's a good way to be. That's a positive example of how being stubborn can be beneficial for you and for the people around you. So think along those lines. 10 things that make up what you are, your essence, how you think, how you do, how you prefer to live. Write down 10 things or more. And I want you to post some or all of those things on the Why Not Celebrate Your Wins timeline. Okay? Make sense? Do that exercise. This is cultivating an appreciation for ourselves. We're going to do this, and I'll lead us off, and I'll do mine right after this broadcast. Okay? The other part of this is this thing of appreciation that grows. You have an appreciation, listen, y'all, that grows from actions that support your physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. That exercise, you do that, that's going to stoke, that's going to feed into, it's going to support the physical, psychological, and the spiritual growth. That's really important. Here's what I want to share with you on that note concerning that part of the definition. My listening and viewing friend, I shared yesterday very passionately. Self-love is a very versatile tool. It's a very versatile approach. It can be used for the professional. It can be used for the casual person. It can be used for the employed, the unemployed. It can be used for singles. It can be used for married couples. It can be used for people who are living together, whatever their situation. Couples, it doesn't matter. Divorced, widowed. Self-love is a thing that is beneficial to area. It's an approach that can prove to be very, very fruit bearing for whoever chooses to engage in the principles and the practice of self love. I hope I made that point clear yesterday. So, having said that, if we take self love and as we apply it and relate it to our goal pursuits, you know what self love enables you to do? Self love, my listening friend, enables you to be supremely laser focused and what it is you want and need to do. Here's why. Because the part of this of the definition that's on the card for the day says a state of appreciation that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Let me break it down to you East Baltimore style. What this is saying is that the physical, we're talking about the outer you. The psychological, we're talking about the inner you. And permit me to use this phraseology for the spiritual component. We're talking about um, the overseeing you, the oversight you, the higher self you. Okay, so you have the outer you, the inner you, and the part of you that can oversee things, your moral center, your moral compass. That's where you're going to be governing from. That's going to be your perch where you look down on your life and be able to advise you what needs to happen and why. It's going to be the conscious center of what needs to happen. Some people believe that's above. Some people believe it's the innermost part of you. Whatever place you want to assign that mindset or that oversight, help yourself. For the purpose of this discussion, I just want to make sure that you may understand it's three separate divisions: an outer, an inner, and an upper, or maybe an innermost, however you want to do it. The idea being is this: you must do the things that will stoke and feed each of those three areas to the degree that something grows in those areas. You want to feed those areas. Again, we're talking about deposits, right? But you want to feed those areas of who you are to the degree that there is growth. And you, my listening, viewing friend, want to at all times be able to give evidence to that growth. You want to put that growth on display in your life. People should see that you're growing, that you're changing, that you are transforming, that you are becoming something else, something new, something different. Put that on display. First, make it applicable, make it evidence for yourself, where you can tell, where you get excited because you know you're a different person today than you were yesterday. That you're a different person this month than you were last month, this year than you, etc. If you understand my point, make sure growth and development is something you are continuing to pursue. And if you do this self-love focus the right way, you will see growth and development in all of those areas without even having to try. Because the things that I'm going to give you to do, the focal points I'm going to ask you to pay attention to, the things I'm going to ask you to zoom in and take a closer look. I may ask you at different points in time to use a microscope. Sometimes I may say use a telescope, a magnifying glass. In any case, we're going to take closer looks at different things pertaining to our well-being, our happiness, our lives, and how we interact with ourselves in turn, and how the external us interacts with those in our world around us. So we're going to look at all those things, and the byproduct will be growth and development. You can guarantee that, resting assured in that. So we want to understand this. Here's another thing I want you to see from this, and this will be one of my final points before we close this podcast out. When you think about the outer you, the inner you, and the either innermost or the upper you, you want to understand this. When you're talking about goal pursuits, when you consider yourself in these three areas and do what's necessary so that there is growth in those areas, you become laser focused. Why? I said it earlier. Let me go back and address that so I can give you all of what you need to know concerning. Why do you become laser focused, James? I'm glad you asked, my listening friend. Because everything that pertains to growth in those areas, you need to seek, you need to grab a hold to, you need to seize, you need to apprehend, you need to make yours, you need to obtain everything pertaining to growth and development in those three key areas. And here's the flip side of that coin: everything that does not promote or facilitate growth and development in those areas, you need to avoid, you need to stay clear of. You need to, because this will help you in that laser focusing that you're doing. This will help you know what to do and what not to do. It will help you to know what and when and how to engage, and what and when and how not to engage. It will also help you to understand that there will be certain people and certain people's mindsets that are not going to be healthy or conducive to your growth and development in this area, in these areas. And I hate to say that because it sounds like we're being haters. It sounds like we're being snobbish, but that's just a fact of life. The one thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, the one thing that is one of the primary chief obstacles and enemies of self-love is toxicity. Your own, of course, and that of other people. You want to stay away from toxic people. Stay away from toxicity that you see in other people. So you want to be careful on how you connect and how you interact with people. You don't have to embrace the toxicity or the people. There's a certain way, you've ever heard your parents say, you want to keep so and so at arm's length. You only want to deal with them to a certain degree. Again, I know that sounds very haterish, but that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to serve you haterade, but we are trying to help you to be conscious enough to understand that you ever want to do a bunch of work for yourself and promote and facilitate self-love, and then you want to douse that fire, you want to douse those flames, throw a wet blanket on all that progress, deal with somebody that is toxic, somebody who exudes the opposite of everything you're trying to cultivate. It's not going to work. It's not going to be. It's going to be an oil and water mix. So when you understand how these things work for you, when you are knowledgeable and you are action oriented about these things, you are seeking things that will facilitate your growth on these three planes: physical, psychological, or mental, and spiritual. The overseeing you, the moral center, the moral compass, the grit, the principles of who you are. Those things need to be stored. Growth is, we all know, the thing that does not grow dies. And there are many, many people that we've seen and interacted with. I can testify to the fact that I've been one of these people that have been alive but dead inside because I had stopped growing. My growth and development had been stymied, had been stifled, had been cut short or doused for whatever reason, whether it was something family related or just something me related, maybe a mindset I adopted that was unhealthy. I have been that person many times in several seasons, unfortunately. Certainly not something to brag about. It's very painful. It's a very painful testimony that I could give, and I'm sure you could too if we had the time to share, is being alive but being dead because we are not growing in these key critical areas. The outer you, the inner you, and the upper you. Stoke them. Make sure you're giving evidence, provide evidence. Make sure that you can see these things blooming, developing, changing. Make sure that there is a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. Make sure that there is a blossom coming, a wonderfully scented, beautiful flower growing from this budding that's happening in your life. Make sure you can see it and make sure that other people see it as well. Not to boast, but so that you can have an appreciation for who you are and for what you are, for how you are, and for the things you do. So self-love is a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. I'm going to stop there. That's your self-love focus day number 2 nuance pieces. Hang on to that, share them, talk about them, meditate on them, put them into practice more than anything. Don't just hear me. Hear and become action oriented. Do the assignment that I mentioned. Go back and listen to it if you need more details. Create for yourself a list of 10 aspects of what makes you up. What are the 10 things that you feel make you up? It's a list, and I want you to do this often as an exercise so that you can continue to seek a state of appreciation. You can maintain it, and you can give evidence to it. And you have a state of appreciation that will stoke and be a jumping off point for additional growth and development. That's how this whole thing works. Yeah, James, you said the same thing last night. No, I didn't. These are new perspectives from the same phrases, from the same definition. So we're going to spin the vase, as I say, multiple times. We'll do some things tomorrow. Everything will be a play off of the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation's definition of self-love. In case you're wondering, we won't have, I don't think there are any cards that don't have something pertaining to this definition of self-love. It is the cornerstone for this entire 16-day focus. I hope you've heard me and that's clear. So everything will be self-love related, pertaining to some aspect, word, phrase, or sentence from the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation's definition of self-love. If you need that, go back to the timeline. I think I actually pinned it to the top of the page. So take a look at your guide section, take a look at your featured section. There's tons of information up there that I just pinned yesterday for the sake of providing an online reference within our growing, budding community. Again, it's my privilege to be able to serve you. I hope you're getting something out of this, and I hope that you are seeing a change. First in mindset, an understanding of your priorities and how the deck needs to be shuffled. Listen to last night's broadcast. It'll make sense. And then from that understanding, it grows and things begin to happen where you start to see that certain things absolutely positively need to be done. You can't love yourself and just sit still. Loving yourself is an action-oriented concept. It's an action-oriented approach where you become the thing that you've been looking for. Okay, and that's what we want to do. We want to get you stoked. We want to get you properly fitted and equipped so that you can be the best you can possibly be for your sake, for the benefit of yourself, and then for the people with whom you come in contact. James W. Falcon, thank you for listening. I hope there is peace and power in your homes this evening. Until the next time, take care.